So, good morning, Mike. Good to be with you as always here in South Florida at our makeshift studio just down the road from iHeartMedia on 45th. Remember, we used to go there Saturday mornings and drive Nutter Butter Bananas.
Yeah,
Who would name their
absolutely.
kid Butter or Nutter? I'm not really sure what that's all about.
I'm not sure, but we're going to have to bring him on into the Business Bits podcast at
should.
some time in the
Business
future.
Bits, yeah.
Because it was a lot of fun always recording with Nuther in there.
Yeah,
and
you
I
see
know
him
he
behind
has
the plate glass window, like laughing and like peeing his pants over some of the stuff this character would come up with. So
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of fun.
He has some of the best stories, I'm sure. He's
Oh,
seen me
God.
walk out probably a few times too many.
Steam, puffs of steam coming out of your ears.
Yeah, I wonder what he's up to. We got to get him on in here at some point in the future, because now we're doing more business topics and not just the retirement. This show today, we're going to mix them in together and talk about retirement and business. Because as you and I both know, business owners have unique situations when it comes to retirement.
They do, yeah.
They're kind of on their own. Instead of having an employer to kind of guide them along the way, they really have to figure out their retirement strategies completely solo, and they don't really have an employee match there for them either to take a benefit of. So business owners have unique situations, and their future retirement could be doomed if they don't start to diversify outside of their business, because sometimes they're tied up too much in their business.
Right. I think that's a great point, Mike. And in this segment of Business Bits, let's talk a little bit about that. You know, a business owner, when you start as an entrepreneur and you have a vision of a business, then you get into the tactical work of trade and commerce and all the regulations and dealing with payroll and all these other things. And all of a sudden it gets very, very complicated, and it really can suffocate and take out the life's blood of what you were originally passionate about. Plus, a lot of business owners really come from what we call the E-Myth Academy, which is they're really tacticians having an epileptic seizure. Michael Gerber wrote a great book about that called The E-Myth, and he says that, you know, most accountants are trained in the tactical work of being an accountant. They're a CPA, they're really good with numbers and reconciliations, but they're not really business owners per se. When they go as a tactician, the employee, the skilled worker, into their own business, they're both the employer and the employee. But business building and managing a business is an entirely different skill set. So naturally, there's going to be a growth curve or a learning curve that you're going to have to go through. That's number one. Number two, you also know you have to be, in the early days of business, the chief cook and bottle washer. You got to do everything. You know, you can't just say to somebody else, "Hey, you take out the trash." No, you take out the trash.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of, you have to, I think, have a degree of humility. But as you move forward in business and have a level of prosperity, that's kind of where we come in at the pivot or inflection point, when you want to look at what your growth opportunities are going forward, but also how to diversify outside of the business, because every business runs through a natural life cycle. You think of the legendary big businesses that are no longer legends and no longer as mired as the great institutions they once were. AT&T, even ExxonMobil, Altria, which is Philip Morris. All of these brands have diminished dramatically, and they're on probably the tail end of their lifestyle or their life cycle. If you take a company like Altria, which used to be Philip Morris, they actually made a $12 billion investment in the vape company Juul, which is cannibalizing their market share, because they know they're basically saying, don't smoke combustible tobacco, move off onto Juul. You see what I mean? They're basically putting themselves out of their original business. Not uncommon, because disruptive change is at an accelerated rate. And if you don't think so, then you better go to sleep and really dream about the realities of life. Things change on the dime. And so with that being said, you want to start to think about when's the right time to diversify away from your business, really, and try to safe harbor your assets and do the right thing for your estate planning. And all of those things are in our jurisdiction, Mike, things that we love to do.
Yep, absolutely. I was speaking with a gentleman yesterday. He's diversifying outside of his real estate portfolio, and he's coming on into our offices in the near future.
Right.
Because he wants to scale back on his business and have a little bit more freedom going forward.
Sure.
So he's trying to get rid of all of his multifamily properties right now in the area. That way he can let somebody else do the management. So you have some options. You can diversify outside of your business into either other businesses, or you could start to look for more the passive opportunities if you're nearer towards retirement and start creating income without as much work. And that's really what we try to focus on.
No doubt about it, Michael. And every business owner has a different approach. I have one client that is a physical therapist by training, but he actually runs as a leader of a group of 27 physical therapists. Now, most of them are independent contractors, so they're not on payroll. He doesn't have to pay FICA tax, but he's still extremely busy. He makes about $400,000 a year, which is a really nice income. But I'm not sure I'd want to run a stable of 27 physical therapists with their idiosyncrasies and their different personalities and needs for when they can't come in because they're going to be in Belize on a romantic vacation. I'm not sure that I'd want to do that for $400,000 a year. And he's investing in growth. He just pushed back on me and said, I'm not going to go with a certain investment strategy because I'm investing more money in my business, to the point where he's probably getting diminishing returns. He's just working harder and harder, even with the stable of therapists. He's still actively involved in the business, and he's kind of doubling down on his growth model. I don't really know what he thinks as to how it's going to help him achieve his goal, because his goal as a relatively young man is to buy his life back. And I see him going in the opposite direction, because once you're on that growth trajectory, you have to follow it through. You have to follow it through. Otherwise, those benefits will never accrue and the harvest won't be there. And if you think it's going to take 1, 2, or 3 years, it's probably going to take 8 to 10 years. So you got to really think about that. But at the end of the day, a lot of great things that business owners can learn from a community of other business owners. One of the unique things about us, Mike, as you know, is I've always been in my own business. So I've never had a paycheck that I didn't write myself.
Yep.
That means I just understand a lot of the challenges that business owners deal with. And I think it gives me a refreshing perspective that when folks sit down with me, I bring a business owner perspective and an advisor perspective, and we try to synergize those two things to create great outcomes for our clients.
Yep, and there's a lot of similarities when you write the check, so it's a lot easier to relate. So that is a big thing. You can't relate to someone that's not on the same page a lot of times. So business owners, that's exactly why we're here doing Business Bits.
That's right.
Trying to relate and share some advice. So let's get into some tips if you're looking to diversify outside of the business, because that's one thing. Essentially, you're looking for growth and prosperity, but then at some point you want to protect it and buy some freedom back. You could either keep dumping money into your business, or you can get outside of the business. So what are some options? Or really, let's walk through the process of what we do to help people get their money outside of their business and really diversify.
Right.
And it all starts with that retirement compass, because that's really the process to see where you're at and where you need to go.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Michael. The first thing is the retirement compass, I think, is a great tool, and it's trademark pending, I believe. But at the end of the day, think about a compass as the needle will always think or will always seek true north, and that's what you want to do, is navigate towards the north. If you're a little bit of if you have a deviation, if you're off course, your needle will not be pointing north. You're going northeast. You got to kind of make some corrections, regardless of the business you're in. Whether you're a professional, such as a doctor, but you own your own primary care practice, or if you're in light manufacturing and industrial, and you work in a warehouse industrial complex. Either way, you fundamentally still have to ask yourself these same questions. Where do I want to be in 5 years? And that's kind of what the retirement compass looks at. It looks at the landscape of your business and personal financial life today. It also looks at where you want to be in the future. It analyzes risk. It looks at taxation and how you can reduce taxes. It basically helps you with your risk management and also to cultivate diversified streams of income, which is really what it takes, money that comes in whether you work or not. That's really what it takes to retire. So it's a great, great tool for that. And we go through that process in a multi-step interview process. The first is just getting acquainted with you, seeing if it might be a good fit to work together, gathering the data so we can start to configure, make some diagnosis, and also start to configure some options, which we can present to you conceptually as kind of an opening salvo or first draft of your plan in meeting number 2. No obligation on either of our part. We simply believe that if you and I believe it's going to be a good fit to work together in meeting 2, that we start that onboard process, working together, all right, and then we go over how we're going to be compensated and all of those things, because it has to be an equitable arrangement. And then number 3, once we build out the plan, we establish or implement the plan, and and then we're going to survey or monitor it periodically to make sure you're always on course. So that's kind of like a high-level overall framework as to what we do and how we do it. I think the biggest misconception is most people believe it's going to be very expensive, when in truth, sometimes you save money because you're paying opaque fees on mutual funds you didn't even know you have. And if we use one of our custodial platforms like Fidelity or Schwab, because of their enormous use of information technology and scale, their huge, huge footprint, the cost to use them as your custodian with me as an advisor sometimes is a net savings for you, just as an example. And I think other times people are just fearful that they're going to get sold something in a first meeting, right? And they're apprehensive about, clutching their wallet. We don't do that. First meeting is entirely introductory discussion, because I believe if there's not a commerce of hearts, there's no reason to have a second meeting. It's not about selling you something in a first meeting. It's about seeing if it's a good fit to work together. And I think that is a very, very important distinction, because a lot of people, well, certainly our clients can testify to that because they've been through the process. But many people come in and they're very skeptical at first, thinking, how are you going to get me? When are you going to reach for my checkbook? It doesn't work that way. It wouldn't work that way because we're interested in a relationship, and a relationship has to be curated or developed over time. It doesn't happen like that. You can't push a relationship. You can push a transaction, but you can't push a relationship if you want it to be healthy and hopefully vibrant over the longer course of time. So that's what we like to do, and I hope that explains it relatively well for our viewers or listenership. Because
I'm pretty sure that walked them through the process.
I think
and
so.
It's all about the relationship, which harkens back to business, because business owners have to be really good at creating relationships with their customers and their employees to get closer to the goal, or things are just going to spiral out of control at the end of the day.
Well, naturally, yeah.
So it's always going to go back to relationships, and that's really what we're looking. We're looking to build relationships and walk people through the process so they know exactly where they're at and where they need to go. So what are some things that are actually inside the retirement compass that people can expect? Because it's always customized. Each person's situation is always different.
Right, sure.
I know we do everything from the range of tax planning all the way down to just, your traditional stocks and bonds. So there's a lot of things that can encompass inside the actual compass.
Right.
So what are some of the things, I guess, that people can expect to see when they go through the process?
Well, I think number one is it's revelatory because, as far as I know, we're one of the very few boutique firms that actually does results in advanced planning, or it's kind of forward-looking. It looks at where you are today, but also gives you a roadmap moving forward as to where we anticipate your income may be at future mile markers along the way. And that's very important because most people don't have a plan, Mike. They have a portfolio. And you've heard me say this many, many times. If you get a statement that tells you what your investments were worth at the end of the prior month, that's certainly a good thing. It's a record. But it doesn't tell you where you're going in the future. As a matter of fact, today, if it's the 7th of the month and the 30th was the end of the last month, your portfolio could be down $30,000 from what it showed on the statement. That's really a pretty dramatic departure from what the statement said. It's not forward-looking, it's recording history. So history is important, but also laying out a blueprint for the future, which is something we try to help folks with who are business owners really wanting to take advantage of this complete retirement compass review.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of hilarious when people share with you statements that are even a couple months old, because nowadays you could just log into your phone and see exactly where you're at. Especially when you're done with our process, you could actually make sure you can log in, check your accounts.
That's right.
And see where you're at day to day. So really, statements kind of don't hold much relevancy other than to show you a quick snapshot of your holdings. But
that's right.
By tomorrow or yesterday, it can completely change, because Facebook, who knows what it's doing right now. Yesterday, they got their biggest fine in history.
Yeah.
And the
Today,
stock
the stock
could be
might
going
be going
crazy.
up.
Or it
Sure.
could be going up because there's no rhyme or reason to it. So it could be going up, it could be going down. Nobody really knows, but it's really a crazy phenomenon.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Tesla as a company, although I admire the brand and the great innovation of Elon Musk. But I heard a quip that he said, and I thought it was pretty brilliant because it makes you understand how business leaders like that sometimes think. He said, I don't pay any attention to the day-to-day share price of our stock. He goes, to me, that'd be like if I had a home and every morning I'm having my cup of coffee out in the front or foyer, and if a guy just comes out to the front gate and shouts out a price, I'll give you this for your house. Okay, and then goes home. Next day, guy comes out and shouts out a price. It's $50,000 more. The day after, it's $70,000 less. I'm like, this guy's just nuts. Well, that's what the stock market is like. Just think about it. It's the stock market is just
the
nuts.
pre-market.
And remember this, if you're day trading or think you're going to make money, it's usually the greater fool concept. The people that really are in the know, the market makers, the ones that trade on algorithms and basically use hyper speed trading and all of those things, they've got a competitive advantage over you every time. That's a game that you're going to get knocked out on most of the time. It's just like when we watch, Mom and I like to watch sometimes Deal or No Deal. It's a fun program, but I saw this poker player the other day and she's playing, but it's purely speculation and gambling. There's at least some skill in poker, but just selecting which box and which number has the $1 million. It's fun. It's certainly great entertainment, but it is definitely not an investment experience. So you got to be very careful.
I actually have the Deal or No Deal hack. So
gosh.
If they have Deal or No Deal in arcade games, and I figured out the way to win pretty much every single time.
Well, good for you. Either that or you need a lucky bald-headed guy that works for you. In our case, that's Fernando, a.k.a. El Toro, the bull. Luckiest man alive.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the disqualification in the Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby, he of course randomly wins thousands of dollars just in a pool. He won the Super Bowl pool, right? Because if you remember, the Super Bowl was a very boring or low-scoring game. The New England Patriots won by I think a final score of 13-3. Well, the fourth quarter at the end of the game, whoever had the last digits for the winner and the loser, 3-3, 13. That's the last digit 3 and 3 would win. He won that one. So it's just incredible. We just, he's the Pied Piper, but just like we got great people here. Ruben is our media guy, tall and valiant looking, former Marine, so you don't want to mess with him. We use him to clear out the room if I have to do any special speaking in areas that are not secure. But at the end of the day, having a little fun. Hopefully you'll get to meet some of these people if you come saunter down to our offices here at the lovely, what I call BB&T Center building on Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard.
Absolutely. And if you want to get a plan, this is the time to do it because retirement's getting trickier and trickier, especially if you're a business owner.
That's right.
And if you think your statements are relevant, I'm looking at Facebook stock. They just got hit with their biggest fine in history, and its pre-market is going to be trading up. So your statements are kind of becoming slowly irrelevant over time. It really comes back to creating a plan that step by step is going to walk you through your scenarios and what you can expect if X, Y, and Z happen, and kind of run you through all situations. Because really, nobody knows really what's going on in the markets. The best thing is to have a plan.
Great. Have a plan. Make sure that you follow through in a reasoned, unemotional way. Brian Mudd from the Morning Drive on WJNO says you always want to separate your money from your emotions. Very important. We all suffer from palpable fear or anxiety. We all are related sometimes. You have to control those emotions, just like diminish them. You're in charge, not your emotions. Check them at the door. If you can't do that, you don't probably have the temperament to be a reasonably good investor. Not according to me, but according to the legend Warren Buffett. Much of it he says it's not necessary that you have a brilliant IQ. Average is fine. You just have to have the right temperament. And temperament is very important. But at the end of the day, we help our clients with their financial temperament. Take your temperature, if you will. There's an analogy. And then if you're running a little fever or whatever, will help get you a salve to your wounds, get you on a better plan. The business owner development for retirement and investment success. And so that's what we're committed to. But I know we got to run out of here pretty soon, Mike. I don't know if there's any final comments or any other things you want to chat about in the next few moments.
I think this is going to wrap it up for today. Like you said, investing should be unemotional, and we're going to leave it on that. I think we're going to come back next week for Business Bits again. So until next time, Dad, I'm going to let you lead it on out.
Well, sometimes, in our radio show, I love to share my paraphrase of the old Irish prayer. So I'm going to go out on a limb and do that here today. May I? May the wind be gently at your back, my friend. May the sun shine warmly on your face. May the misty low road rise up to meet the high road. And until our paths meet again, my friend, may God richly bless you, anoint you with good health, and have a magnificent day. Goodbye now.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that. Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the videos. If you got some more free time, I know you do, make sure you check this video out right here. And if you don't like that one, make sure you check this one out too, or just watch them both. See you guys soon.